Yay, it's Thursday. Can you believe it already? Is it me or has this week just flown? Welcome to the Israel Brief, as always, brought to you by Lay of the Land. And as always, hosted by me, Rolene Marks, where we take a look at those top stories making headlines in Israel, and we do it every Monday to Thursday. So before we break for the weekend, let's take a look at those top stories. And yesterday, we brought you news of the absolutely diabolical comments that Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas had said in Berlin over the last couple of days. Those comments claiming that Palestinians had survived 50 Holocausts, which of course led to outrage and global condemnation. I did see yesterday condemnations from the European Commission's Vice President, from the European Commission's envoy against anti-Semitism, from the US's envoy against anti-Semitism, and from people and leaders around the world. And yesterday we also brought you news that the spokesperson from German Chancellor Olaf Scholtz's office said that the Chancellor would phone Israel's Prime Minister Yair Lapid today. Well, that phone call took place earlier today, and we know that the leaders spoke about Iran and preventing Iran from becoming nuclear. But of course, the main topic of discussion were Abbas's horrific comments. Now, of course, we must remember that Yair Lapid is the son of a Holocaust survivor and said this to the Chancellor. The Chancellor reiterated that he absolutely rejects and condemns Mahmoud Abbas's comments, and he not only wanted to make that statement publicly, but he wanted to phone the Prime Minister and convey those feelings to him personally. Now, he did face some admonishing from the German press for not condemning immediately. It took him a couple of hours to condemn it. Maybe he was just in such a state of shock. Who knows? But he did express his condemnation, calling them absolutely intolerable. Meanwhile, Israel's ambassador to Germany, Ambassador Ron Prosser, said nobody is in a hurry to invite Mahmoud Abbas to Germany anytime soon. Now, one of the reasons that Mahmoud Abbas made his horrific comments was that he was questioned by a reporter about the 50-year anniversary of the Munich massacre at the Munich Olympics, where 11 Israeli athletes and coaches were murdered by Palestinian Black September. Now, we know that the German government has offered the families of those murdered some kind of stipend, which the family says absolutely a pittance. And while you can't quantify how much a life is worth, what was offered was, in their words, an insult. However, German President Steinmeier is considering visiting Israel to meet with the families, to talk to them and help break the boycott and the stalemate there. So we will bring you any update on that story. Now, in the news today, there have been two extraordinary stories. The first one we're going to get to in a moment, and then we'll address the second one. The first one is with regards to Palestinian Islamic Jihad. As you know, almost 2 weeks ago, Israel embarked on Operation Breaking Dawn in response to military intelligence that we received that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terror group was planning to launch attacks on Israel's citizens. Now, the IDF has learned, or at least has made public, that apparently PIJ commanders wanted their terrorists to enter the tunnels that have been dug from Gaza into Israel. Well, now they're foiled by a subterranean wall, a wall that blocks them off from exiting on the Israeli side of the border, but that their operatives were refusing to go in. And the reason for this is pretty simple. Last year, during Operation Guardians of the Wall, the IAF embarked on quite an audacious bombing campaign of that, what we call the metro, the network of tunnels under the ground. And apparently, it has resulted in a big psychological impact on terrorists inside Gaza. They are terrified, apparently, of the IDF's strike capability. If you recall, last year there was that I think it's probably one of the most audacious military campaigns where the IDF spokesperson kind of ambiguously said that IDF troops were engaged on the ground in Gaza. Now, the New York Times took this to mean that troops had entered the Gaza Strip. However, what had actually happened was that in preparation for the so-called troops to enter the Gaza Strip and then be surprise attacked by Hamas terrorists, they entered the tunnels, and while they were captive there, waiting to spring on the soldiers coming in, the Israeli Air Force took this opportunity to blow up the tunnels. Of course, the IDF spokesperson said afterwards that, his words were misconstrued. I think it's probably the most chutzpanit military offensive ever, and will go down in the annals of great military strategies. And while we're speaking of Hamas, something pretty extraordinary has happened today on Twitter. Hamas have tweeted out that they support Turkey and Israel normalizing ties. Now, whether they are sincere about this, we don't know. And believe me, we are under no illusions that Hamas is suddenly going soft. Are they perhaps planning something bigger down the line and maybe engaging in psychological ops? Something very, strange is afoot, but believe me, we are not naive here in Israel. We are under absolutely no illusions, which brings me to the second interesting headline of the day, and a well-placed source inside of Gaza, a source connected to the Al-Quds Brigade, said that apparently they were prevented from laying their missiles in their various strategic launching points because Hamas forbid it. Their military arm, Al-Qassam Brigade, apparently had prevented Al-Quds from laying down their missile positions and actually confiscated the missiles. Now, is this a result of Israel's new carrot and stick approach, where, calm will be met with increased work permits allowed into Israel, increased aid, increased fuel let into the Strip? Or, as I said just a few moments ago, is there some kind of psychological operation afoot? I think only time and obviously our super wide awake intelligence will know the answer to this. Meanwhile, Israel's chief of staff for the IDF, Aviv Kochavi, speaking to a conference held by the Education Ministry today, said very cryptically that during Operation Breaking Dawn, Israel had struck targets in Gaza while also embarking on counter-terror offensives in the West Bank, and had struck a third country. Now, he didn't say who it was or in what context, but of course this will leave many people speculating as to who it possibly could have been. And our final story, and we really love ending off our week with stories like this, is the race is on in the United Kingdom for the leader of the Conservative or the Tory party, who effectively will replace Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. Now, will it be Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss? Liz Truss is the current Foreign Secretary. We've been speaking a lot about her very strong relationship with our Prime Minister, Yair Lapid, especially when he was the Foreign Minister. Now, they both seem to be vying for the Jewish vote or the conservative supporters of Israel vote. So earlier this week we had Liz Truss mentioning that if she became the Premier or the Prime Minister of Britain, she definitely will consider moving the British Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, our capital. And her competition, Rishi Sunak, said that Jerusalem is absolutely the indisputable capital of Jerusalem, and while he would consider moving the embassy, it's easier said than done, but he definitely would want a longer, stronger deal with Iran that would prevent Iran from becoming nuclear. and also he would increase the amount of countries involved in the Abraham Accords. Could this mean Britain would enter the Abraham Accords? Could this mean that more Arab countries would? Well, let's see who wins, and let's see if they walk the talk. But walking the talk is Lay of the Land. We do it online. You can find us on our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our Facebook community is at Lottel Site. You know what to do. Like us, follow us, share our content. Our YouTube channel is at The Israel Brief. Thank you to our new subscribers and welcome. Tell your friends about us. This is where you can get the news fresh off the press and right here on your device. So please consider clicking on that red subscribe button if you're viewing us on YouTube. And of course, we're on Twitter at Lay of the Land 5. I'm Rolene Marks, wishing you from all of us to all of you a wonderful weekend. May it be peaceful. May it be restful. Shabbat Shalom. I'll see you on the other side for next week's edition of the Israel Brief. Take care.